Hello everybody and welcome to today's video, and today we'll be looking at the third Bubsy game, Bubsy and Fractured Fairy Tales. And what are my thoughts on this game? Well, if you've seen my last two videos, you know I loved the first Bubsy game very much, but I found the second Bubsy game to be, well, disappointing. So, what are my general thoughts of this entry? Well, to make a long story short, I'm not a fan of this entry, and I also consider this to be another disappointing sequel, but this game has different issues compared to Bubsy 2. So let's dive deeper, and let me explain why I think that Bubsy and Fractured Fairy Tales is another disappointing sequel. But first, like always, let's talk about the development of this game. So if you've been living under a rock and don't know about this game, well, it was originally released for the Atari Jaguar, a 64-bit console that really didn't feel like it was 64 bits. And originally, it was just going to be a port of the first game. But then the team making it decided, well, screw it, and make an entirely brand new game instead of a port. Now, this team, as far as I could get with researching, also didn't like Bubsy, with reports of mocking his quotes to annoy each other. But it's not as bad as Bubsy's 2 staff, because at least the game's producer, Farron Thomas, seems very passionate about it. And as much as I will criticize this game, I will heavily respect this guy because he made a game despite with all the limitations, and that is something to be recognized. So, without further ado, let's get into this game. Like the last Bubsy video, this video will also be a bit negative, so I feel I should start with the positives first. For one, the controls are back to normal, as they are identical to the first game. Thank goodness, because after playing Bubsy 2 and its awful control scheme, it's nice to have something that actually plays good. I also really like Bubsy's animations here, as I feel like he's the most expressive as he's ever been, especially his idle animations. I also like the bosses here, in terms of variety. Though I do have my problems with the bosses, which I'll get into, I do like how every boss is unique and sometimes you have to defeat them in a different way, such as the third boss where you need to destroy the vase in order to defeat it. Finally, the last thing I like about this game is its soundtrack. I feel like this game's soundtrack is an absolute banger, especially because I feel like it rivals even the first game's soundtrack, though I do prefer the first games, but this game is a close second when it comes to soundtrack. But this is where my positives end here, and where my complaints begin. First, remember how I praised the first two games for having a comic book to tell its plot instead of a text blurb? Well, say goodbye to that comic book, because here is a text blurb. And, well, the story in this game is just weird. Basically, all the fairy tales are guided by Mother Goose, who doesn't even look like a goose, and she gets captured by Hansel and Gretel, which causes all the fairy tales to be mixed up. So how do you fix this? By killing everything in your path.
Did it, Patrick! We saved the city! Just think what might have happened if we didn't tell everyone about the monster!
Now, one of my biggest complaints with this game is its level design. Because I'm just going to be honest here. The level design in this game is horrible. Remember how I said Bubsy 2 levels were maze-like? Well, this is 1,000 times worse, because these levels are massive, and they have so many different paths, and if you play this game, I guarantee you, most of your deaths will come from running out of time, because you're gonna get lost very easily. Occasionally, there's an arrow that tells you where to go, but that just happens once in a blue moon. This could easily be solved if you had a level map. Also, get this, you die in one hit, just like in Bubsy Claw's Encounters of the Third Kind. And these death animations are just weird. I don't know how to explain it, so I just hope my footage shows you what I mean by it being weird. Now, if the team wanted to make bigger and larger levels, then that's fine, but make sure the player doesn't get lost. Sonic CD is a good example of how you do this type of level design right, because the exit is always at the very end of the level, and you don't actually have to explore. I mean, you still need to explore to get the good ending, but it's not fully required. And that's what makes Sonic CD different from Bubsy and Fractured Fairy Tales, because here, the exit could be anywhere. It could be at the beginning of the stage, at the end of the stage, in the top right, top left, in the middle. It could be wherever it is. Another problem I have with this game is that it didn't bring a whole lot new to the franchise. Because what I want to see from a sequel is something new, not just new locations and new enemies, because that's just expected, but I want to see any new game mechanics. As much as I dislike Bubsy 2, at least it brought some new ideas to the table, like a health system, new items. Even if they did fall flat, they were still new. The most new thing I can find with this game is that there's a high score table and the boss variety. And okay, let's get into the bosses. Now, although I did praise this game for having good variety of bosses, I'm not that big of a fan of them because of how difficult and unfair they are. Because, for example, the first boss, the Mad Hatter, doesn't feel like it's the first boss. It feels more like it's the final boss. And the final boss, Hansel and Gretel, doesn't even feel like it's the final boss. It is just so unorganized and so weird. One last problem I have with this game, and this might be a bit controversial, but this game has like the least amount of Bubsy lines. And that's because while in the first game he said a new line in between levels, here he says a new line in between worlds. And some of them aren't even new. They're just carried over from Bubsy 2.
Pilot's license? What for? Pilot's license? What for?
Okay, so those are my general thoughts of this game. And to end this video more on a positive note, although I was complaining a lot about this game, I still prefer it over Bubsy 2, as I feel like it's closer to the first game than Bubsy 2 was. But I still think the first game is 10 times better than Bubsy and Fractured Furry Tales. But in terms of a sequel, I would much rather play this over Bubsy 2. But even then, I do feel like this game is still a bit, well, mediocre. But those are just my thoughts on Bubsy and Fractured Furry Tales. And if you like this game, then great for you. Because although I was complaining about this game a lot, I don't hate it too much. Or at least not as much as I don't like Bubsy 2. I just feel like it was just a bit of a letdown compared to the first game. So anyway, in conclusion, I think Bubsy and Fractured Furry Tales is just another disappointing sequel. Thanks for watching.